The theme music of the If Not Now When podcast is provided by producer and DJ Spicy Ketchup. You can listen to his music wherever you stream music at, and follow him on Instagram at Spicy Ketchup Music. This podcast was produced locally and independently by Spocast Productions. On this episode of If Not Now When, we sit down with someone whose story is as dynamic as it is deeply inspiring. Our friend, Blue Stiley. Blue is a host of the Navigating No podcast, a show that's all about turning rejection into growth and learning how to show up when life doesn't go as planned. He's a speaker, a mentor, he's a father, a husband. He's someone who spent years exploring what it means to lead with vulnerability and purpose, whether that's in relationships, fatherhood, or your own personal path. Beyond the mic, Blue is doing work here in Spokane. He's connecting with young people, showing up in schools, speaking on stages, and helping others rethink what strength looks like and why our stories, especially the hard ones, matter. In this episode, we talk about how martial arts helped shape his confidence, the lessons that came from failing early, writing his first book, The Sum of Four, and what it means to trust yourself when life pushes you toward a new path. This conversation goes deep. You'll hear about the moments that tested him, the decisions that defined him, and why Blue believes the hard parts of our stories are often what prepare us to lead. Blue is the kind of person that makes Spokane better just by being here. And I am so excited for you to get to know him. Let's get into it. I don't have you introduce it, obviously, but yeah. I can definitely
You want me to just start with the reading, right?
You don't got to read. You can just introduce Blue.
Welcome.
Thanks,
it's
buddy.
Good to have you, man.
No, it's good. This is awesome. Are we going?
Yeah, we're going.
Oh, all right.
We're going.
We're going downtown.
All I can think of is Bruce Springsteen right now.
Oh, I love that.
I just taught Luca about the Going Down song.
Yeah.
Because it's important.
I grew up with that tape.
Yeah.
And I used to ski to it. And I would have it in, and then you'd have the little sport earbuds in at the time. And oh my gosh, I would listen to that thing.
The yellow Sony Walkman.
Yes, exactly.
Hard plastic. Yeah, you couldn't.
But do you remember the Discman?
Oh my God, yeah.
And then you couldn't skip the sport one was the cool one because that one did not skip.
Yeah, the anti-skip, 15-second anti-skip.
Yeah.
I used to run with a CD player, when I was
a
in cross country. No, one that you connect to your hip.
Yeah,
and it was. That was the only way you could listen to music back, or you listen to the radio. You get a radio,
tape decks were
the bomb.
You just stop and hit rewind for 13 seconds.
Oh man!
Start playing Asia again. I never meant to be. Well, we're here today with Blue Stiley, who you grew up in Spokane.
I did.
You have a long list of things that you enjoy and that you've accomplished. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say karate. The proper way, but You are a 5th degree black belt, and this is something you still do.
I still do it, yeah.
And so where do you do that here in Spokane?
So I have my own dojo out of my home.
Okay.
And then when I travel, I can still train. Mm-hmm. And in fact, my Aikido instructor came and visited and saw my son's T-ball. The other day. So it's still a big part of my life.
Yeah.
And it all started when I was 8 years old here at the Pacific Judo Academy at the police department.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That seems like it might be intimidating as an 8-year-old.
Well, I think the intimidation came from being picked on and made fun of for my name.
Okay.
And I think that overtook any scare or anxiety that I had going into the judo program by any means. So that's what started it, though.
Yeah. So I don't understand. So did they make fun of the Blue, the Stiley, because I remember being in the 80s and that would have been the fucking coolest name. Josh. That's not cool. And in the 80s, everything was a little more this is all 80s garb.
Yeah.
Wow, it's funny. I think that's
I got made fun of so bad because I think having the name and being a stick with lips and then wearing camouflage gear. I thought that I was trying to be cool. I just never fit in anywhere. And people thought that we had money because I grew up in this mansion, but it was a dilapidated, horrible, haunted mansion off of 15th and 17th Street on the South Hill. And I think people just judged me incorrectly, and I got picked on, and especially by older kids. And so I didn't know what to do. And my parents decided that the best thing to do is to put me into martial arts. And I basically was the Karate Kid story. And in all seriousness, looking back now.
And did you actually compete in like the Spokane All Valley tournament? Because there was, this is funny, there was an All Valley tournament in the 80s here in Spokane. I don't know how long it might even still be going on.
I don't know what the tournament system is now. But yes, I absolutely did. And in fact, I was so scared and I didn't know what to do. And so my dad came up with an idea and he said, listen, I'm going to take you out on Saturday. And I didn't know where we were going. And he took me to a judo tournament out at WSU.
Okay.
And when I showed up, it was the coolest thing. Because I knew I always wanted to be a ninja.
Yeah.
Like I mean, in the 80s, everything was all
everybody
ninjas,
wanted to
right?
be a ninja.
And it even had commercials about where you could get your ninja uniform. And it
Do
was
you
just
remember
the coolest
Black
thing.
Belt magazine?
Oh, 100%.
So my brother's a black belt, older brother, and he kind of the same thing, got made fun of. And then at like 6 years old, my parents put him in Taekwondo. I'm saying that wrong, but and he trained with this.
I can't correct you on that one because it's Korean, so I don't know the correct pronunciation of Taekwondo.
But like he just did that and didn't do any other sports, and but he had Black Belt magazine and he had nunchucks and he had throwing stars and he had swords, and he would just go into the magazine and then my parents would buy him random little things in it, and then he would test them on me. Because I was bones and lips my nickname was Scrawny up until some of my friends still call me that, even though it doesn't fit the current physical attributes that I carry. But he just, he took his Black Belt magazine, ordered that shit, and just pummeled me with it.
Oh,
Three-legged staff. Do you remember that one? There were three
pieces to it,
longer pieces, and you'd get it spinning, and
So, well, I went into the gym at WSU, and when I went in, they had all these vendors, and they had throwing stars and blow dart guns and like swords. I mean, like they do not sell those anymore, right?
No.
But I pity the dogs that anybody ever bought that for. But I always in my mind was thinking like, oh, if I had all those weapons, I could take care of the bullies that beat me up all the time. And the moment that I walked in, I was just like in heaven.
This was where you wanted to be.
Yeah, and I just something really triggered in me, and so like your brother, I did do sports at Ferris, and I played baseball, and I tried football, but that just was not my thing.
Yeah.
And I was good enough to make the team, but my heart was in karate.
Yeah.
And so 7 days a week I was training in judo, and I was in aikido, and then I was in Shotokan karate, and it was the greatest thing I could have ever done.
Yeah, that's rad. I think that a lot of people look at it like they're going to go in and they're going to learn how to fight and then they're going to beat up everybody. And I'm guessing if you trained that often with a good dojo, that you never beat up anybody for fun.
No, and it's
changes
about self-defense, 100%.
Yeah, and it's about respect for yourself and respect for the people around you. And it's pretty amazing how much a kid can learn, not just to protect themselves, but about themselves. And
well, and it is an environment or a community where I blossomed, right? And it was not only about learning self-defense, and it was about learning of the life lessons and habits that I could to start a business, to my love for books, my love for travel, my love for languages, my love for a community, about being able to reach out to people who knew more than me. Because I was thrown into this as a kid, and I was surrounded by people who were way better than me, but they were all willing to help me.
And they all had good intentions.
Everybody made me feel heard, seen, and valued, like Brene Brown talks about, but they made me feel like I belonged, 100%. And so I wanted to go there. And I felt like, oh, I want to be a part of this, and they would put their arm around me, and it was just like, I cannot think of anything more beneficial in my life than walking into those dojo doors.
The respect you learned and everything else.
100%.
And then, so you did that, you're 18. What is 18-year-old Blue doing, and where is he headed?
Well, one of my biggest life lessons, and this is one of like when people talk to me about my navigating now, and like one of my biggest challenges up to that date, my biggest failure was not making my black belt. And so my instructor, I was 18, and I told everybody in my school I was testing for my black belt, and it was going to happen that Friday night. I went in and we tested at the very end, and I was the last person to test. And I thought I did everything perfectly, and I sat down, I was kneeling down, and my instructor said, even though it was close, you didn't have enough points to pass. And
crush you?
Oh, it felt like the rug got pulled out from under me. I felt like I got all the wind knocked out of me because I had not only let myself down, but I had let my instructor down. Right? I let my entire team, I let all my friends down that I told at high school. That was real fun. I couldn't wait to go back on Monday and tell everybody I'd failed. I let my family down. And that was a really hard weekend because I contemplated quitting.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know if I wanted to do it. And I ended up going back on that Monday, and that was one of the longest classes I'd ever been in. And at the end of class, you sit down, and everybody was trying to keep their heads up because they knew I was the only one who failed. And that sucked because nobody wanted to celebrate. But at the same time, it was like I was the failure of that time. And we were kneeling, and my instructor asked me, he goes, "Why are you sitting there?" Because you line up according to rank. And he goes, "Why are you sitting there?" And I go, with a light chuckle, I was like, "Well, this is where the brown belts sit." And he goes, "No, you belong up here." And right then he pulled out an embroidered black
Stop
belt.
it.
Yeah. And it was, you talk about tears. And so it was not only my most proud moment to that point, but it was also the fact that the test wasn't the real test, right?
Yeah.
He just didn't know how I was going to handle real failure. Because he knew I was going to physically pass the test. Yes. And whether or not I would come back. And that absolutely set me up to, no matter what I take on in this world, the worst thing that can happen is I just go back for another 6 months and I train again. So it was like, it was one of the greatest lessons. And I still look back at it and I'm like, man, that I speak about that from the stage. I mean, it's just one of those moments. So at 18, I learned a huge lesson, which was my actual failure of that test. But then how do I use that and grow from it? And he gave me that ability.
You had 10 years that you had invested in this.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to be a ninja for 10 years. And I thought at that moment that a black belt meant you were going to be a ninja. Yeah. Not really, right? But
no,
that's
but
what
at
I thought.
8 or 9 you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know Luca's been in since he was 5 at Kim Jong's. And same thing. He thinks he's going to be a ninja someday, and it's great. Like,
I cannot stress the value of kids and youth getting into some kind of martial art or some skill set, whether that's sports or athletics or anything.
For sure.
The amount of things that you learn from a mentor or a coach or an instructor or a sensei in my case are priceless.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that he has learned from this is you have to listen. You have to listen. There's no goofing off. And I've only gone to a couple of his classes because he and his mom, that's their thing. Soccer's our thing, and they do the, I think he's in Taekwondo. Is that right? The Korean, yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, same
you
thing.
really need to go to one of those classes.
I know, but he's out there getting hit. He listens so incredibly well because of it, and the respect that he shows to everyone around him. It's not me parenting him or his mom parenting him. It's that coupled with a really good sensei.
It's a foundation.
Yeah.
It is 100% a foundation of everything that all of the life skills and things that I learned began at that dojo.
Yeah.
And it just set me up for success with all the things that I was doing, whether that was getting through high school, whether that was getting into college. It was like I was just starting on first or second base already because I was surrounded by people that cared about me.
Yeah.
And the structure came.
You had proven to yourself and the people around you that you can stick to something. And that's huge at 18 years old.
Well, and not only that, like with college, like people ask me from the audience, they're always like, "Do you need to go to college?" I'm like, what college proves to an employer is that you can do something
you can make
for
it through
4 years or 2 years or whatever that is. It's like, it just shows that you're dedicated enough to doing something. It's just like becoming like an Eagle Scout. Maybe I can start a fire out in the woods just like that person, but it shows that person gave so much part of their life to becoming an Eagle Scout.
Yeah.
Are you also an
the
Eagle
community.
Scout?
No.
Okay. I was going to
But
say.
I totally respect someone who dedicates that much time and effort to something like learning to cook or starting a business. It's like, that there is sweat and sweat equity.
Where did it come? Where did it come from? I mean, like, because I know a lot about your backstory just because I've sat in all your podcasts and I've listened to you read your book and I've read parts of your book. And the other thing we didn't really put in here is that, like, you also started a business when you were like younger, like hustling baseball cards in high school, and then you started an LLC when you were 12 years old, and like, where did you get the hustle from to do all that so young?
It feels like a parent thing.
Was
it a parent thing?
No, it wasn't. My dad left us when I was 10. And so my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she supported me completely. It really became, it was my father figure who was my martial arts instructor, and then being surrounded by a group of, because I trained with the black belts all the time who were adults, and they would I would shadow them, and they would be my mentor. And the Japanese believe in a senpai-kohai relationship, and it was a mentor-mentee relationship, and I just attached to that. And if I saw wanting to become something or have something that somebody else have, if I asked how they got it, they were more than willing to do it. And to the sports card, I was 12 years old, and I went to junior high. And if you remember, in junior high, they had 3 kinds of milk. They had the blue kind, the red kind, and the brown kind.
And the brown,
And everybody wanted the brown, because that was chocolate milk. But I didn't, because I don't like chocolate. And so one of the kids at the table was like, "I'll give you 50 cents for every chocolate milk you don't drink." And I was like, "All right, I'll do that." Let's forget for a second that our parents actually paid for that milk, right? And so I did that, and I took 50 cents. And in the 80s, everybody was buying sports cards. And I walked by a convenience store. I went to Libby Junior High, and I walked uphill both ways to school. And I went into a convenience store and I bought 2 packs of cards. And I went to school the next day, and everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, you have 2 unopened packs. Like, I want those, because everybody was trading. We're talking Pokemon on steroids. Then, right?
I remember
And so they were like, "I'll give you 50 cents for those." And I was like, "Well, I don't need it. I have cards at home." Okay, so I sold those for 50 cents. Well, then I also sold the chocolate milk, so I had $1.50. And I went and I bought more packs. I repeated that process, and I'll save you the math, but by day 8, I was making $80 a day. And I did that for over a month. And then until the principal caught wind of what I was doing. And he was like, "Blue, you can't sell drugs or cards out of your locker." And so I was pretty proud of my locker commerce that I created. And so I didn't know what to do. And one of my senpais in our dojo was like, "Well, go get a business license." And I was like, "Well, how do you do that?" He goes, "You go down to Spokane, downtown, but get a LLC going and start a business." And so at that time, I went to all the card shows, and they had them at every hotel, and they would bring people in. And I was a kid selling to other kids and adults, and I had no overhead, I had no employees, and I had no costs. And I was using my friends' cards as commission base. And I did that for a couple of years until my grades started to slip. And the currency was that I couldn't train in karate if my grades slipped. And so that was more important to me. So I gave up on that, and the fact that my mom probably was done chaperoning me around at 14 years old. And so I got out of the business. And I'm glad that I did, because soon after, the sports card business completely dropped out. But I did it before, at the same time I was able to do it, I was able to accumulate enough money for me to pay for my entire college education and then my 2 kids' future college education.
Wow.
So, and that was at 14. Then fast forward to 18, I failed my black belt test.
There was at the DoubleTree, when it would have been 1987, there was a card show. And I was
probably there.
12 or 13. And it was $21, I think. And I got the 86-87 Fleer basketball deck, which had Stockton, Jordan's rookie card. There were 4 or 5 rookie cards, Barkley maybe. And I remember selling it to this neighbor. He was a really good friend of mine, but his little brother, and sold it to him for $35. And I thought I was so smart. And that Jordan rookie card, I think, has fluctuated to the tune of $20,000 at one point.
Well, Well, and cards have taken off. Like they've actually gained ground again. Like you can get a card and then it comes with a piece of a jersey of somebody or an autograph and it's made of gold. So, I mean, the market's completely changed from what I had. But like a Ken Griffey Jr. Upper Deck card, the number 1 was like, that's like, I think it was like $180. And it might be $1 now. Like, you know, it's like, they're just dive down. So it's like, it's interesting. And they overproduced everything. But man, the emotion attached to that.
Rookie card. 86, 87 Fleer Jordan rookie card.
We're going to price
we
check
need to
this.
know, yeah. Well, so 18, you stayed in Spokane through high school. And then where did you go to college?
So I went from high school. My parents were going to retire down in Cozumel, Mexico, and so they had befriended a family down there who owned a dive shop. Oh wow! And so after high school, I went down there and I worked at his dive shop. God! I helped at his dive shop.
Yeah.
And it was one of the coolest jobs I could have ever done. It had the cruise ships coming in all the time. It was just fun at 18, and I wanted
what
to learn.
What an environment for an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
A dive shop in Cozumel.
Yeah. Oh, it was awesome. And my Spanish was good, but I did want to get into something. And so I was like, well, I wanted to really immerse myself. And so what better way than to live there? And so I was able to be with my dad, which was awesome, or with my father figure there, who was the host father. And he taught me how to cook. Okay. And somebody just the other day asked, like, where did you learn to cook? Oh, my friend Matt, and his son is on my son's baseball team, and he was like, he goes, oh, how did you learn to cook? I go, my host father in Mexico taught me how to cook and how to clean and how to like prep and how to do all the dishes while cooking.
Yeah.
And I was like 18 years old, and he goes, you're going to want this skill to impress the ladies in the future, and it's going to be something that you take with you. And that was just one of the things. And
that might be some of the best advice that gets thrown out of this little room today is truly learning how to cook and how to do it right and how to clean as you cook. It's a very impressive thing. Oh, like incredibly impressive.
And I would go to the store with my host father, and we would pick the meal for the night. And so it's like you'd pick fresh squid or you'd pick fresh tomatillos or whatever. Yeah. And it was like being able to do that. And then even now my wife is like, you're going to cook tonight. What are you going to cook? And I'll just look in the fridge and I'll do like a quick scan. I'm like, this is what I can create. Yeah. Right. And it's all based off of going into a store with my host father and being put in an environment where I'm forced to do something. And I think that's one of the greatest skills of anything. I remember I was with my uncle, and I was 16, and I had just gotten my driver's license, and he was like, he goes, do you know how to change a tire? I'm like, no. And he goes, how do you have a license and not know how to change a tire? He pulled off, and he made me change the tire there on the road. So it was like being put in these hard environments where
thrown
you're
into the fire.
You remember them, and you become an expert really, really fast.
Yeah.
And so
that's amazing.
Yeah, and I love.
So how long did you get to stay in?
I was there for about a year.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So you took a year off of school.
Like, yeah. I was done with high school. Yeah. And when I was down there, this is the greatest part: is that my host father, he was like, he had an underwater dive company, and where like you would video the client underwater, then we would run home, we would like edit it, add music to it, and then give that to them, right? All VHS.
Yeah.
And what the cruise ships would come in, there were a lot of Japanese.
Yeah.
And I knew enough Japanese because of karate, because everything is taught in Japanese, that I could at least get them hooked and bring in tourists to my host father's dive shop. And so I did that, and I was like, man, I think I'd really like to learn Japanese because I wanted to do international corporate law. I was growing up and I watched LA Law all the time. I was I want to do that. Yeah. And at least I thought I did. And so I was like, how awesome would it be to be able to defend myself in Spanish and Japanese? And it's the same vowel system, so it's not that hard. The reading and writing is different.
Oh, God, yeah.
But it's the same vowel system. And so I was like, okay. And so when I got back to school, or when I came back into the States, I looked at the best programs, and it was NYU, Hawaii University, and then UW. And since I was paying for college myself, I was like, well, I'm going to go to the UW.
Yeah.
And so I applied, I got in, and I luckily got in. You talk about a rejection. There was I didn't have a counselor that said, you need to take these tests, you need to do this, you need to apply. And I had no idea. I just showed up and I was like, I'm going to get into the Japanese program. Yeah. But it's so popular that there was a 300-person waiting list to it. And I was like, oh, I had no idea about that. But then one day I got online right before school started and it said there was an opening.
And you took
so
it.
I took it.
Yeah.
And I showed up and then I saw the list of 300 people. And that was one of those moments where it just, everything worked for me. And then because once you get in, you have to apply the next year for the first year. And so I got in, it was a year program. And then I got I degreed in Japanese. And then I did degreed in business. And I did not get into the business school the first 2 times. And that was a hard rejection too, which is a whole different story. But it was like I kept trying and trying. And I was like, oh man.
But how many kids take that rejection that you had when they said, I'm so sorry, there's 300 people ahead of you, and don't even think about trying again?
Oh, well, not only that, but like, okay, now what I'm going to get into engineering or something.
Yeah.
I just knew that it was something that I wanted to do. And if I had not gotten in, I would have applied the next year. And the reason that I know that is because the business program, I did not get in the first. And I got that rejection letter and I was like, oh, well, now what? Because, okay. And I decided at that moment, I was like, well, I can take classes for a year and then reapply. And then after I reapply and I get in, then I have a year of business classes that I paid for. And so I did, and I took those classes and I applied again and I got rejected again. Wow. And I was like, well, I could take another year of business classes and try my 3rd year and say, but if I don't get in now, so it's like scoping down, my choices are a little less. And I was like, if I don't get in, then what? Because I basically have a degree. And instead, I was like, well, the worst thing that can happen is the dean tells me no. So I walked into the dean's office and I went, Mr. Dean, even though it wasn't Jimmy. And I went in and I said, listen, I've done all these extracurricular things. I run a martial arts school through UW Extensions. I have done all these. I've made your dean's list every single quarter. I would love to be in the business school. And he goes, Blue, I'm allotted 2 spots and you just earned 1 because you did not quit. Yeah. And that, once again, was from I wasn't going to quit with my black belt failure, right? So it was like, that was just something that I learned. It's like the worst thing that somebody can tell you is no, so why not ask? Especially if you have that preparation, right? Like it wasn't I just went, hey, will you let me in? I had to have done the work.
No, you had your list and you had done what you needed to do. Yeah,
exactly.
And do you think that you've spoken a lot about mentors that you've had and your sensei?
That was corrected.
And then down in Mexico, your host father. Who was it during your college years that you were looking for mentorship through?
Through my college, it was still my martial arts instructor.
Okay.
Because I would always bring my school. I started a school at UW, and then I would bring them back. And he was just always this person that I could always talk to. Yeah. And he was just like my dad. Yeah. And he was my greatest influence of my entire life. And I would say that would have been it. But at the same time, I thought I wanted to be an anesthesiologist. And so my friend's dad met with me and he's like, why do you want to be an anesthesiologist? And I was, well, I've had several knee surgeries and you guys are the coolest people. And I'm like, you guys are funny. And this,
you always give me a little pill to calm me down.
You make a lot of money.
There's a lot to it. I mean, that's...
But then he told me, he goes, Blue, that's the good side, but I go to school longer than a doctor. I get we pay the most insurance because we get sued the most. I have no family life. Like my beeper at that time was always on.
Oh yeah.
And he goes, and he doesn't get to see his son. And he said, and you're an extrovert. Yeah. And I sit in front of a TV screen while you go night. Yeah. And I'm there for 45 minutes to 4 hours. And he goes, this is not your job. And I was like, wow, I walked away from that coffee meet knowing that I wasn't going to spend all this money, all this time of doing something that I probably wouldn't get any pleasure out of. Yeah. And that was that lesson of like, and I would want everybody to hear this. If there's something that you want to do in this world, find somebody who's done it and ask them what it's like. Because they might reveal something that's like, that is not for me. Or maybe they spark something in you and you're like, that's exactly what I want to do. Yeah. And then maybe they help you. Because that's the secret of anything that I've ever done is I just connect myself with that mentor. Yeah. Somebody who is like just been through that fire, and you're super lucky if they've gone through the fire and then will go through the fire again.
And you talk about in your book a lot about mentorship. And you got lucky and had some really great ones, and one that it sounds like has been a mentor for life. you took that mentorship, turned it into a black belt, then you turned it into how you were going to live your life and how you were going to approach all of the good, bad, and ugly that occurs. What is it that stuck with you the most about what he taught you between 8 and 18? Mm-hmm. And I know you were with him a lot longer than that, mm-hmm. but those 10 years, what was it that flipped in you that said, okay, this is what it's all about? What did he teach you that you just could not live without?
That anything that I wanted to do, I could achieve. Anything that I wanted was attainable. Mm-hmm. I just had to find the way to get there.
Yeah.
And it helps a lot if you find somebody who's already at the end of that path who will help you along that journey. Because I could have gone into space exploration. I could have gone into the military. I could have anything that I've ever piqued my interest. As long as I find somebody who's been there, mm-hmm. and you just have the ability and the confidence to ask, people will help you.
Yeah.
And so overall confidence is what martial arts taught me. Like the worst thing that somebody can say is no. The worst thing you can be rejected, but it's like, okay, move on.
Great.
Don't take it personally. See things objectively and move on. And it's fun. I mean, I wrote a whole book about it.
Yeah.
Right. And the lessons that he taught me, I mean, I thought I wanted to be a ninja. I wanted to do international corporate law, and that set me towards going to school in Tokyo. Mm-hmm. Right. So I went to UW, and then I transferred to a college in Tokyo, Japan. And then I made the all-world karate team, and then I was on the all-collegiate team. And it was like, all of those things happened from me being 8 years old in Spokane, Washington,
and getting picked on,
having your. Yeah. I can reverse engineer it completely to these moments in my life, and every one of them, they didn't bring me down. They just were a catalyst.
Yeah,
that completely projected something into a different role.
Who was the worst little bully?
I don't know his name,
okay.
But he lived 2 blocks between me and my home.
Yeah.
And I would intentionally walk a different route that was longer.
I
didn't want to run into him. He was older than I was. He was bigger than I was. And he was just mean.
Yeah.
And it was awful. Like, it was awful.
Matt White. That was the bully. That was the bully that got my brother to go to Taekwondo. And I think, he regretted picking on my brother. I can say that much.
But I mean, I think that life is full of bullies, right?
Oh,
there are
God.
always people that are going to be, that are rude to you or mean you,
level.
don't include you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be somebody who picks on you and beats you up. It could be mental. It
Emotional,
could be like, and Luca now, and my daughter, they're going to come into this world where they have their phones, and it's like they're every single day at school, they could be picked on, right? But then when they get home, which used to be safe for us, it doesn't stop.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that terrifies me as a dad.
Well, especially when you can destroy their dad.
Oh, yeah. True.
No kidding.
I mean, I'm not going to bring it up, but I wouldn't fuck with Blue's kids.
That comes up all the time. My son came to me, he's like, he's told kids that I have a podcast, and kids have went and looked at it, and the kids didn't tell Link that, like, your dad's podcast sucks, and they can do it to each one of you too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I'm like, that does scare me, because like everyone's so accessible now that like you do have to like we really do have to teach our kids to like prepare for that.
Yeah,
because like
if you can get them to have the confidence, and just let them understand that, like, if you can do it like a duck and water off your back, right, or off your feather,
deflect it,
and just like let it go. But I'm teaching Luca that everybody has
to let it go.
Oh, for sure.
And that's what,
even as an adult, you're like, oh,
that's the navigating. No,
jeez,
it is being. It hurts. It 100% hurts, and it sucks, and it doesn't feel good. But it's like, if you can understand, the more exposure you get to that and the more confidence you get, then the more you believe in yourself, and you don't let those things.
Yeah.
It is easier to like pass you by, but it's not easy. And especially to a kid, I would say that I don't have to be that one. My daughter, since she was 3, I've been teaching her, right? And so it's interesting because people, I was always curious of like when people make fun of a girl hitting and they say, oh, you hit like a girl or something like that. I have been in competitions where I have been beat up by a girl hitting me and knocking the wind out of me. And I'm like, why? How is it that they've been able to do that? And they don't hit like the typical person that you would say was a girl hitting. And over the years of instructing it, it's just the coordination of the hip.
Yeah.
And so if a girl or a boy can learn to use their hip in kicking and in punching and in moving and dodging, in any sport, the power comes from the hips.
Yeah.
And so the earlier that coordination comes is imperative. And so I have taught my daughter, I'm like, you don't swing with your arm. Yeah. It comes from your hip. Whether you're throwing the ball, whether you're throwing a kick or a punch, it's from the hip. And that's the difference.
So tell me about Japan. You were there for just...
Well, it's an island. And it has some great food. And
Mount Fuji's there.
Mount Fuji is there. FYI, one of the greatest experiences. I love looking back at my life and saying, wow, these are great experiences. One of the greatest ones was climbing Mount Fuji and seeing the sunrise. And then that day... going down the backside, and it's all this pumice, like lava rock. And I was able to jump and run down it. And every step that you would take, it would sink a little bit, but it was like you were in a video game.
Yeah.
And running, it's like running on the moon.
That's crazy.
And the only thing that I could ever connect that to was when I was a dive master in Mexico. If you take enough weight off and there's a current, you can run on the ocean floor without your flippers on.
Yeah.
And it's like running on the moon. And it's exactly what it was
crazy.
like. So it was a great experience.
Yeah.
That was totally off part of Tokyo. But
I have to lead with, I was climbing Mount Fuji. Like, that's all you had to say. I don't need to know anything else.
Everybody
you
can do Mount Fuji.
Wow.
It's not the greatest. I haven't done Everest or anything like that. But no, I loved it. And Japan was wonderful. I've some great friends there. I have a host sister, Lisa, who's there. And I was just able to see her.
You were just in Japan this year, right?
So I spoke at Star Wars Celebration and for Lucasfilm and Disney and Reed Pop, and being able to be there, but I was able to bring my host sister. And that was just one of the greatest things.
That's
and I
so
have
rad.
My host brother there. I just still have friends that I trained with there that have taught me so much. And I wanted to do international corporate law, so I worked on my Japanese, and what better way than to immerse myself in the Japanese language.
And this would have been in the late 90s, right?
This was late 90s, yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you went there to study international corporate law, but like that's not your
what
path.
I thought that I was going to do.
So what was like, where was the shift? Because like, did you came back to the States, correct? Yep. And at this point, were you modeling still?
No, I hadn't done any of that.
Okay.
So
you're 24-ish.
Yeah. I had there. 3 degrees. Yeah. I came back and I thought the world was going to be open up all
Fuji.
The doors. And I climbed Mount Fuji. And I had Japanese curry at the top. Mm-hmm. And it was one of the greatest curries I've ever had. I don't know if it was because I was hungry. I would want people to hear this, that the world owes you nothing.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And the moment that you realize that, that's pretty... an aha moment.
It's a quintessential moment for your growth.
Yes.
To finally admit and be unselfish and say, I deserve nothing that I don't create myself.
Well,
it's a tough thing to say,
it.
Right?
It's like I had 3 degrees. I had done great in school, and I thought the world was going to open its doors to me. And that was a hard reality to realize, but it was like, you have to open the doors.
Yeah.
And some of those doors do not open. And if you want in bad enough, you have to figure a way in.
Yeah.
Some open easier than others, and some are open. But it's like being able to get through those doors. It was a huge realization. And I came back, and interestingly enough, people asked me, like, did you experience culture shock? And to me, I had traveled my whole life. I had never experienced culture shock.
Yeah.
But I did coming back from Japan, because everything that had happened to me when I was there happened in Japanese.
Yeah.
So every story that I experienced, every injury that had happened to me, every tournament that I won, everything, every class was in Japanese. All of my friends, every story that had happened to me, I had already expressed it in Japanese. And that was hard because I came back and I'm such an extrovert and I'm a talker.
Yeah.
It was hard for me. Like I was like, ugh, I didn't have the words. But yeah, I thought that I wanted to do international corporate law, and I was studying for the LSAT and the GMAT. And I thought I wanted to go to an Ivy League school. And I was lucky that UW had an extension to an Ivy League there. So I experienced that. I was like, oh, I want to do Ivy League. And I love Boston, but I don't want to live on the East Coast. And and I was like, why would I go to an Ivy League and because that's the whole idea, is that it's the connections you make over there, and then you're going to stay there. Well, if I don't want to stay there, why would I do that? So I was like, that was step number one. I was like, I don't know if I really want to get into that. And I was training I was working out at Gold's Gym, and
this was here in Spokane.
No, this was in Seattle.
In Seattle.
And
so when you came back from Japan, you moved back to Seattle. I moved
back to Seattle.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's where all my college friends were. And that's where my life had started. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go either to an Ivy League or maybe down south into California. And when I was there, a friend of mine at the time, she was like, you should teach karate, to teach martial arts to all the Gold's gyms. And so in order to do so, I had to become certified as a personal trainer. And in the first 2 months, I beat every record, both nationally and internationally, on Gold's Gym for sales. Yeah. And it was not because I was a good personal trainer. I was still a stick with lips. It was because of the way that I gained the trust of people. I brought them in.
Calm, measured.
Made a meaningful connection with them. And I brought them into my community. And so by applying the same things that my instructor had done, by gaining my trust, making a meaningful, genuine connection with me, and then bringing me into his community or his dojo, I just applied that as a sales rep, AKA as a personal trainer. And I loved it so much that I was like, why am I going to be international corporate law? And so I gave it up.
It's funny. So many people, when you're good at selling or building relationships, people ask, well, how do you sell so well? And it's like, well, because if you really truly care, if you're not just a shitty human being and you care about what you're offering and you believe in it, and then it becomes very easy.
It's just like having a conversation with a friend, someone that you trust, and someone that obviously you know a little deeper on that level, right? And you know that your son Luca plays this sport. It's like right now, it's like this connection that starts to begin, and it's just something that became natural that I picked up from my instructor. And so
and growing up, having a lot of good adult influence, in my opinion.
Male and female.
Yeah.
I will 100% say that. And I was, my parents were hippies. So it was like I had this group of hippie commune people that some of my greatest influences were friends. And especially, I had someone who was like a big brother to me. Yeah. And he helped shape my life. And to this day, I still thank him because he molded me. Right. And I'm lucky that I had a good group of friends in school that were like my ride or dies. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And it was just like I had these people that always supported and believed in me. Then I came back to Seattle and I thought to do that. And I gave that up, the international corporate law. But every assessment test growing up, and I want people to hear this, said that I was going to be a teacher. And I was like, I do not want to be a teacher. I saw lean on me and stand and deliver. And I did not want to do that. So I would try to skew it. And every time it would say, you're going to be a teacher. And I did not think, I had Tyler Lafferty on the podcast. Yeah. And he was like, he wanted to be Robert Plant. He wanted to be a rock star. And he goes, what he didn't know, and what I also didn't know, is that that's not the only path to rock stardom, right? My only path wasn't that. It was like, to be able to, you could be the agent to that group. Oh, God, you could be pyrotechnics. You could be like a lawyer for them. You could be you can get into an industry and still be a part of something like that. Yeah. And I am a teacher because I speak from the stage, and I taught martial arts classes, and I taught CQB to police forces and SWAT groups. And it's like that just opened up this whole new world to me.
And I think also we look at it as a society, the whole personal trainer thing, as like, oh, that's just a ploy. But I know so many people that had tried their whole lives to figure out how to get a great relationship with their physical well-being and didn't know how until they actually hired someone one-on-one to actually explain to them what is required and what's not required. And so that's the same. You're teaching when you're being a personal trainer. You're not just saying, "Oh, do 12 reps 3 times," and
that's fun to do,
teaching
though.
them why.
Yeah. Well, a good trainer is going to teach you the why.
More. Yeah.
They will teach you the why. And also another good trainer would be someone who could say, "I don't know how to get you there." And that's how I came up with the for karate, for example. I came up with the title of my book, The Sum of Four, based off of something that I learned in Japan. And so in karate, I would kick a front kick and you would land hard. And you're not supposed to do that biomechanic wise. And then also it's like a telltale and you could have your legs sweep from under you. But I would always land hard. And people for years were telling me, land softly, relax your back leg, think of yourself as a butterfly. Nothing worked.
Yeah.
And in Japan, I had a young instructor, Naka Sensei, and he said, Blue, imagine that you're a sunny side up egg. And the yellow is your appendages. Everything's flexible and malleable and it can move. Whereas the base is white and it doesn't move. And right when I pictured that, I threw a front kick and I landed softly. And I was like,
oh, wow.
What just happened?
All of that.
He unlocked something that nobody else had been able to, even though he was saying the same thing, right? It was just the way that he told me. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like we all get to something differently, but there's a way to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody learns differently. Everybody explains something differently. And that was a huge lesson to me. And I took that to personal training because the way that I lose weight would be probably different than you. The way that I put muscle on is probably going to be different than you. And so that was another great thing that separated me from another trainer was that I wanted to learn how you get to it because it's my job as the instructor. In Japan, they think that it's the instructor's fault. If I don't know how to get you to that goal, then it's my fault.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, it was kind of a challenge. And so that's what I did. And I took that on and I would always ask everybody like, well, how do you get to 4? People were like, oh, what are you talking about? I go, well, how do you get to 4? And they go, 2 plus 2. I go, okay, well, it's 1 plus 3 for me.
Yeah.
Right? But the whole idea is that you all get to 4. And in math and science, that's called equifinality, which basically means there's multiple, if not infinite, ways of achieving a certain result or a destination or a goal. And so if you want to get to 4, there's a way.
Yeah.
But it might take longer. It might hurt a little more. It might cost a little bit more. But there is a way. And so you just have to figure out how you get there and not be jealous of the other people who got to 4 faster or better or easier or for less money. But if that's the goal you want and that's your priority, get to it. Just keep moving forward.
Do you think that's part of your success in general is just your willingness to never give up?
1,000%.
100%. Okay.
Yeah, because the only way we can fail is, in all seriousness, is either you quit or you die.
Yeah.
It's the only way. Now, I could still be writing a book forever. Yeah. Right? Like, oh, I'm just never going to give it up. But I would suggest to people, like, set a timeline, a realistic timeline. And if you're not to it at that point, it's time to reassess that timeline. Because if you're not done with a book in a year, for example, I gave my wife, because I needed my wife on my team, right? I was like, give me a year to write this book. If I'm not done with that book in a year, it means A, it's not that important to me, or B, I just miscalculated the time by just a little bit and I need another 3 months or something like that. But it keeps you disciplined and moving forward, right? And you just don't talk about it. So if not now, when?
Yeah.
Well, it's right now.
Yeah.
Right? And so if it's a priority for you, go for it right now.
Yeah.
The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to figure out that that's not your priority, or I wrote a book.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to write a second book, or now I'm going to take that book and run with it.
And you have 2 now, right?
No, I'm working on my second.
Working on the second.
Yes, and the second one is based off of the podcast Navigating.
Yeah. So what has been your biggest hurdle in finishing the second one?
Timing.
Okay.
So
because you're busy, right?
I am busy,
you're not...
but if it's a priority, I make time for it, right? And so I have a lot on my table because I want to be a great dad. I want to be a great husband. I want to have a great seller book. I want a great speaking business. And it's like when you're torn too many different directions, it's like you can't devote enough time. And my wife and I talk about this all the time. So if I'm doing 20% and 20% and 20%, you just need to dive into whatever's most important. And so right now, getting the podcast up and running and getting the content from that is really, it's going to make the book that much more valuable.
And your first book, Navigating No.
No, Sum of Four.
Sum of Four. Navigating No is the second. Sorry, I knew this. How long did you give yourself to write that? Did you pick a time? Did you?
So I wrote it. To go back a little bit, my martial arts instructor and my dad died in the same 3 weeks. Oh. And as that happened, I started diarying. And people were like, Blue, you need to write a book. You need to write a book. I'm like, yeah, I need to write a book. And it's not on my high list, right? That's not my priority.
Yeah.
And as I was doing it, I loved self-help books growing up. And I was like, this is kind of like a self-help book of like all the life lessons that my dad taught me of how not to treat people, how not to act, and how not to live my life or be a leader. And then how my martial arts instructor taught me how to live, how to treat others, how to lead. Was like this opposite, like Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, man, that's a self-help book.
Yeah.
But then, and I wrote it, and I had 75,000 words. I didn't know what I was doing. I turned it into an editor, and it came back, and he goes, you kind of write like a college student. And I was like, yeah.
Well, because I haven't written since then.
Well, yeah, I was like, the last paper I wrote was on the history of Japan, which is 12 pages, right? I'm like, I didn't go to school to be a writer. But it sucked. Like, because I poured all of this in, 75,000 words is a lot, right? And so it just felt like a punch in the stomach. And a friend of mine told me, Boyd Morrison, I'm going to give him a plug on this one, is that he said, do you want to be a writer or a wannabe writer? And he's a New York Times bestselling author.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I want to be a writer. He goes, then take what they said and fix it.
Yeah.
Because if they didn't understand it, your audience won't understand it. And so I did, and I turned it back in, and it came back a little less candy cane. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was speaking to audiences, and I was using parts of my book idea. And as I was getting that practice in, I was seeing what was hitting with my audience. And if I told a story, for example, about for selling baseball cards, I would know what worked and what didn't. And I'd be like, I could go back and change it in my book to make the book better. Yeah. Right. And I started doing that. And a year later, I had a book. I turned it in, and it took off. And so I'm getting the same thing with the podcast because I'm getting those repetitions in, and I've interviewed, and Brendan will attest to this, and you as one of my guests, it's like, I'm learning so much, and the content is just going to make Navigating No that much better as another book. Yeah. And so why have it's just, I'm just gaining all of this momentum and this information to make it more valuable to the reader, because in the end, if the audience doesn't understand it, or if they're not getting the value, why would they worry it?
I'm not going to waste my time. If you have to ask the question, do you get it? Then no, they don't get it.
And so the more people I interview, I'm just like, man, there's an overall arc of everybody, how they've overcome rejection, failure, and self-doubt. Like, it's like, that's the nugget, and that is the value. And so I want to be able to provide that. Yeah. And I'm not going to do it until I do it. But I'm at least halfway, if not 70% done. And I'm just working through it. So I'm just getting those reps in now.
That's rad.
When you were writing like the Semaphore, and and you mentioned like you were speaking, like where did the public speaking come from? Because I mean, I think we've all been invited to go public speak, to talk to a class, and was there a moment that clicked? I'm like, I want to like be in front of people to like to tell my story. Like where did that start?
It's terrifying to speak in public. Yeah. I mean, it in all reality, everybody always asks me, are you scared of getting on stage or anything like that? And it is terrifying. Yeah. Like it is if you don't understand the material, right? So I could go back and reverse engineer a couple of things to me. Being picked on, I was always in the center of attention, and people were like making fun of my name and this. And what I realized is that you're not going to tell me anything that I haven't heard. Yeah. And so knowing what you're going to say, I have a great comeback. Yeah. And so being able to do that, and then to hear laughter from the audience, AKA the people around me watching me about to get my butt kicked, was empowering, right? And I could learn to belittle the bully versus using my hands. And so I really use that to my advantage. So that was the first point that I realized, like, the worst thing that they're going to do is tell me something that makes fun of me, but it's like, okay, that bounces off because I know what's coming. And then the second thing was in Japanese school at the UW in Japanese, you were forced to get up and speak, and you were doing like a 1-minute version, a 2-minute version, a 5-minute speech, a 6-minute speech, whatever it was.
All
and
in
you'd
Japanese.
have to get up in Japanese. Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's tough, because that you have to memorize a script. And if you don't understand it, then you're in trouble. Yeah. And then the worst part is when you're forced to do it with another person. Yeah. And you have this dialogue going back. And if that other person doesn't understand, then you're like, and to be able to improv and go off cuff right then, I was like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's something there that I don't have to remember the script so much. And so speaking from the stage now, I don't use slides. I don't do PowerPoint. It's all through storytelling. And I know it so much that it's just like me and you talking about your son.
You have to be able
easier.
to read the room.
You do have to be able to connect with the room.
And
that is a skill set. That's a confidence thing of being able to connect and hook them immediately.
Yep.
But then also it's like, I've given the same speech so many times, or I've given this speech so many times.
Version of
I
it, right?
know what's going to land and what's not. And if it's not, then I have to be able to think on my feet right away.
Yeah.
But that's the fun. That is what
you also spend a bunch of time in front of a bunch of cameras doing modeling, which teaches you some patience with 30, 40 people around you, right? I mean, like what was that experience? And that came after coming back from Japan.
Gym. I was at Gold's Gym and I was found. I was found by this guy and he's like, you should get into acting and modeling. And I was like, all right. And so I did, and I started with my mother agency in Seattle, and they gave me a chance. And I'm grateful for that because it's been 24, 25 years that I've done this as a long career. And I booked a Levi's campaign, the first thing I ever did.
Jesus.
And I was like, this is easy.
Thrown into the fire again.
No, this is easy. Like, I'm going to quit everything, right? Like, why not? Like, that's money. But then I didn't get the next one or the third one or the fourth one and the fifth one. I was just being rejected. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, maybe I'm glad I didn't quit my day job.
Yeah.
Right. I'm glad I didn't move to LA and just hope.
Yeah.
Right. Did not.
Tell that story, though. I don't know this story. You mentioned it maybe in a podcast. I don't know if it was Josh, the one interview with him, but like you did move down to LA and then you like didn't like it and you moved back.
I did.
Like, and I'd love to know, like, because that was some rejection and some moment that that you failed.
Yeah.
But you picked yourself
LA,
back up.
It's not a failure to leave. It is not a failure to leave there.
I'm curious to know the story because I've never heard it.
Well, so Seattle, I started in Seattle's like a B market. Right? Like, so a B market meaning like, it's not like Milan or it's not New York or LA. And so it's like the whole goal was like, if I could become that A actor, that A model. And so it was always in my sights, like, okay, I to do that, to keep moving. And so I started in Seattle and I started branching out into Oregon and started different agencies. And I started seeing that success and my portfolio began to grow. Like literally when they say you got to pay for your pictures, and it was the hardest thing. It was like, I got to pay somebody $800 to get pictures. Hopes that I get booked based off of these pictures. And it was brutal because $800 then was hard.
Yeah.
And so in hopes that you're going to do it. But the only thing I was going to say is that knowing that my agency believed in me enough that they weren't going to make money unless I did, that kind of helped me. It kind of pushed me alongside. And so I made that investment and I was like, okay, I'm going to go down to LA and I'm going to try it out. And I did. And I went down there and I was paying more money in taxi cabs. And it was just brutal trying to make it to castings. And they had cattle calls back then. And everything's done online now. But the casting calls, you'd wait for hours and hours and just hope that you would get it. And I would land something, but it wasn't paying enough. And I was like looking at what it would cost to live in a flat with 5 other people. I was like, that's disgusting to me. And it was just, I just wanted more. So I realized like, what's enough? And it wasn't that.
Yeah.
I didn't need that. And so I was able to create a career that has lasted as long as it has, and I didn't have to go to LA.
Yeah.
Right. And now luckily everything is basically online, so I can be in Seattle or in Spokane, and I still, get the BMW commercial out of Munich. It doesn't matter where I'm at anymore as long as I have those agencies to apply. So it doesn't matter where I am.
That's cool. So you've gotten a great opportunity to travel because of that. But that's not the challenging work that you've done in your life. Like, it's not challenging to be good looking, right? You have to work very hard in the gym and you have to look great. But you've done some stuff that is challenging. You've written a book. You're publicly speaking about the book. In your eyes, what's your most challenging thing? Because to me, that book would be the most challenging thing to get through. But I don't know if that's the most challenging for you. What was it?
Well, I mean, I've had certain challenges along my life, right? And when those challenges present themselves, how I handle them and how I decide whether or not to move forward with them are these just these milestones in my life, like where I've accomplished X, Y, and Z. And whether that was getting into modeling and being in front of the camera all the time, it is definitely a boost. Landing I always have these goals where I set a goal and I'm like, I want to land a cover of a magazine. I want to be in a Hollywood movie. I want to be on a box of underwear model like Marky Mark. And then once
such a good vibration,
sing it. All of these things. Once I hit them, they were just this milestone that I hit. I'm like, okay, now what's next? And how can I grow? How can I improve? And so even though I'm hit with these certain challenges that happen, it's just once I accomplish that milestone, what's next on my agenda? And I think currently it is to write that second book. Because once I wrote the first book, then it's like, okay, now what?
This is possible.
It is. Yeah, everything's possible. Our friend Jarrett, he told my wife, he goes, anything's possible, which basically means like you can tear everything down and redo it and pay for it, which we did for our porch. Anything's possible. And it's like, if it's something that you want bad enough, you can just do it. And so when I look at any goal, if I'm set with that challenge, then I just figure a way out through it, or figure a way through it. And so next on my agenda is that book. But I had to define what success meant to me.
Yeah.
And success means something different to every single one of us. To me now, because of my milestones, and you and I discussed this not only on our podcast, but it means something different. And to me now, the hardest challenge is being a good dad.
Yeah.
And because I'm doing the opposite of, I learned how not to be a dad from my dad. And I want to be so much better. I want to be a better husband. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better friend. I want to be someone who helps people because I have done so much. Yeah. And I am that person that is gone through the fire and I want to help other people. Yeah. Because why not lift everybody up?
For sure.
And so if it can be my kids now, that's awesome. If it can be a better relationship with my mom and show her how much of a difference she made for me, and then to see the absolute love that my kids have for her, that's like the greatest reward,
that is
right?
Special.
And success is having dinner every night with my kids.
Yeah.
Being able to cook for them. Being successful is being able to pick my kids up at school. It doesn't matter. I mean, yes, I could use more money.
Yeah.
Yes, I could use more vacation time. Yes, I could have 1 million subscribers on my podcast, which I don't. But if you are listening to this now, hit the subscribe button to both Josh's and mine, please.
You're going to get my dad following you, I can tell you that much.
Yes.
Because he listens to all, no.
But no, it's like, yes, we could have more.
Yeah.
But I already have enough.
Who is it that said success isn't about attaining more, it's about enjoying less? Somebody said that.
I don't know
and they
who
said
said
it
that.
much more in a much more articulate manner than I just did. But success is learning to be happy with what you have.
Yes.
And now I don't think that means, give up and don't chase your dreams, but be happy even though you maybe failed once or you failed twice and you still continued to try.
But the journey of trying actually gives you those endorphins, right?
Yeah.
Like that being scared, being forced to learn Spanish, and you're put in, and when my host father would say, if I asked him, well, can we get some more water? And he goes, yeah, go ahead and ask. I'm like, whoa, that's scary and intimidating. And he's like, you're not going to learn unless you are forced to put in a hard position. So, si me puedes traer una jarra de agua, right?
Yeah.
Like, I will never forget that.
Yeah.
Right? Entiendes español solamente cuando me conviene. Like, it's like,
No mames, güey.
all of these things happen because you're forced. And it's like, I learned so much by being put in that. That's what gets me. That's what motivates me. That's that fire underneath me of being the challenge. It's the challenge that makes you scared, makes you anxious, gets those butterflies going. And when that happens, whether you're starting a business, whether you're applying for a job, you're going out asking for that promotion, being that scared.
Yeah.
It actually motivates me, right? Because I take that no and I turn it to on, as in it's time to move on and prove this person that I can do that. And so it's like these challenges are just these little things in life that happen. And then to be able to look back, that's the coolest part, right? And I think because of my age and my experience and the milestones that I have hit, I can look back and say, I am happy with, I have no regrets.
Yeah.
And we had Russ Banham on the other day on the podcast, and he said his whole thing was at the very end, and my wife always says this too, is like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you don't get that job.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if he didn't get the Dukes of Hazzard, right? He went with Joe's World instead of Dukes of Hazzard, even though he was given the opportunity to do it. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters most is the friendship and the families that you have and the experiences that you have. And it's like living a happy life is so much better.
Oh my God,
than, I need X number of dollars or anything like that. It's like being accepted and heard and seen and valued by other people and like you belong. I mean, there's nothing better than to walk into a room like Cheers. And I don't mean everybody go to a bar.
No.
But it's like walking into a place where somebody puts their arm around and you want to be there and you want to be that person's friend. And
you know you've got the support of the people around you.
That's success to me. And I get that from my kids. I get that from my wife. I get that from my mom. I get that from my mentors. I get that from Brennan. I get that from you. It's like, I'm a hugger and my wife makes fun of me all the time, but it's like, that's like my greatest way. It's like showing that love back to other people too.
I love it. So what is next? You have the book.
Mm-hmm.
You're still touring and speaking.
Touring like a rock star. I love that.
Well, you said you can get...
I don't want to be a rock star.
Lafferty brought it up, but I mean, you can get to that rock star status somehow, right?
Yeah.
What is next? Like, what's the challenge? I mean, fatherhood, you know, being a great spouse. But is there something that like you're quietly eyeing that you want to attain, not from a monetary standpoint, but just in life? Because you really have accomplished a lot of things that most people would have been fucking stoked with just getting one thing done, and you've done a multitude of them. So that leads me to believe that you're not done. You know?
I'm not done. And I have those dreams and those stars that I'm trying to reach and get to, because that's what keeps me motivated. Yeah. Right. Like otherwise I'm just going to be the shark that sinks and dies.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be that. I want to keep growing. I want to keep swimming. I saw a meme the other day. It said, does a shark complain on Monday morning? No, it doesn't. It goes and eats something and like destroys it. Like
go eat
it
something.
keeps going. Right. And I was like, that's true. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday or if it's Friday. It's like every day is, what am I doing to get towards one of the goals that I want to achieve? I want to meet Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins, one of the coolest self-improvement podcasters and writers and speakers. I want to see how she got to where she is, and I want to mimic that because I want to be Blue Stiley, but I want to follow that. I want to make a bigger difference to more people because that was one of the greatest things is that as an instructor, if I was teaching a class of police officers or if I was teaching a class of like kids, that's a 30 group people. That's a 100 person. But when I start speaking to audiences of 1,000 or 5,000 or 15,000, that's when you make impact and influence. And I think I have a story that I've gone through this fire that I want to share with other people, because if I can change more than one life, not just one, but multiple lives, that's a goal. Yeah. And I think that I can bring good and positivity and just a kindness to this world that I think we need. And I want to be that person. I want to be that agent of change. Yeah. And that's on my horizon. And whether that's through another book, whether that's through, me speaking at Comic-Cons and giving my Dark Side for Life speech, about how the bad guys are way cooler than the good guys, but at the same time, they can be impactful. I don't know. I have lots of goals and I want to attain them. And speaking for Star Wars was one of them. Yeah. And I can check that off my box now, and it's
that's a childhood love. You had a love for Star Wars.
We never got into that, but I was born in 77.
Little.
Yep. Born in 77. And that is like the year to be born if you're a Star Wars fan. I love it. And it speaks to me. And you talk about emotions, whether that's toy collecting or comic books or the movies, or now being able to share that with my kids, and then to be able to speak and be surrounded by 30,000 people. It's a part of a tribe. Yeah. And so to be included and feel that, that's success as well. But
whose is that?
That's my AT-AT. He just pointed towards, my mom got me that for having a tooth extracted when I was a kid. Yeah.
So that's an original.
That's an original. And that's usually my pet that sits here at the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I noticed it last time.
I think I'm going to add a biker scout helmet, though. I think that's going to be something that I want.
You going to wear one?
No, I don't know about wearing one, but Star Wars speaks to me. It's like my love language for sure. And just hitting these milestones just keeps me going. And then to see, and I think you would agree with me, to now see my daughter hit these milestones, and for my wife and I to see, like, vicariously live through our kids is amazing. Like, I do not know anything about soccer other than Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh,
but to see
though.
my daughter play soccer and then to be coached by someone, Chad Thompson's our coach, is that as I was a strength coach for Olympic athletes.
Yeah.
And so to see someone connect with my child the way that I connect with kids or athletes, that is the epitome of what it's like to be a real good mentor.
Pride. Yeah,
100% pride. And to see my daughter light up around him or other coaches or teachers. Oh my gosh, this is a shout out to Miss Goldman and Miss Teskey at Liberty Lake Elementary, because like you're impacting my kid, and not only mine, but like the entire school. But it's like the impact that they're something they say, something they do, they have no idea what it does to my child.
Yeah.
And my instructor now has no idea of the impact that he gave me because he's gone. But I wrote a book about it. I speak from the stage about it. And I mean, I cannot talk about how one person, you never know when or where you will meet someone.
Yeah.
It could be the barista. It could be your Uber driver.
Bio teacher.
It could be anybody, because we all have stories and experience and knowledge that can share and help lift somebody else up.
Yeah.
And people in my life and in my kids' life and in my wife's life, those are called mentors, people that really want to help you get to where you want to go. And that's it, man. That's my journey.
Well, and I think the epitome of mentor, going back to what you were supposed to be when you took all of the exams as a kid, you're supposed to be a teacher. Teachers have the largest opportunity or the biggest opportunity to impact kids' lives. And they can do it in such an incredibly positive manner. It can also go the other way and they can be a really shitty teacher. And I think we all had both. And it's great that you threw a shout out.
But you can learn from those shitty teachers.
I learned a
too.
ton from those ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You learn from bad examples just as good as you can good examples.
And you don't recognize it at the time because you're taking it as like, oh, this person's horrible. They treat me bad, whatever the reason. But later on in life, you really can take lessons from both tacts that teachers take towards you.
One of our other instructors, he was in our sister's school, and I wrote about him. He was he looked like Adonis, and he if Shotokan karate had been an Olympic sport, he would have gone.
Yeah.
And I was terrified of this man because he was the instructor that would hit you and say, "You got to learn to duck."
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
He was like the Cobra Kai instructor.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I was
strike
terrified
first, strike hard, no mercy.
No mercy. And I was so afraid of this man. And one of the greatest lessons in my life, I was taught by an unlikely source, and that being him. And every night that he would come and he would train, I wouldn't want him to come visit because it meant I was going to get hurt.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And one night we were sparring, and he hit me with a side thrust kick in my ribs, and I heard a snap. I was like, "Whoa!" I just broke a rib. And with tears in my eyes, I went up to him, because I was tired of feeling the way that I did to the bully when I was 8 years old.
Yeah.
And I never wanted to feel like that again. And this man was doing that to me again. And so I went up to him and I asked him, I went, "Why is it that I always lose to you?" And he goes, "Honestly?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "I beat you before I walk in these doors." And I had to think about it for a second. And I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, when I walk in, and our dojo had windows that you could see in everybody and you could see anyone coming in from the inside. And he would look at me and stare at me in the eyes
scared.
Deflate.
Yeah.
Immediately, my head would go down. And so I realized at that moment that you don't have to win a fight with a hand or a foot right away, and that you can mentally beat someone.
Confidence.
It's
you said
all
it
about
times.
confidence. But that lesson taught me, like, I will never want to be in that position again. I don't want to be afraid like that.
Yeah.
And even though he was terrifying to me, his intention was good because he did teach me how to move to Japan and become an all-world karate champion and to fight against some of the best.
Yeah.
Right? Because even in Spokane, he wasn't the best. There's always somebody better.
Oh, God,
There's always somebody
In
stronger and
anything.
faster. And it was just like, I wasn't afraid anymore, even if that person was better. It was like, what can I learn from this person? And he just made me a better karate practitioner, but he also gave me a heads up in life. Like, you can't be deflated because we're our own worst enemy sometimes. And that's that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And you can't let that control you.
What and do you have good self-control when it comes to keeping, because you basically have a weapon on you all the time, right? So I
am a ninja.
You are a ninja. We've already discussed this. I watched a little video the other day, and it was some like really famous cage fighting dude, and he's at like a baseball game or something.
I know exactly.
You know
what
what
you're
I'm talking
about.
about?
Yeah.
Like, do you have that level of self-control?
Yeah, I can, because it hurts to get in fights.
Yeah.
And there's always, you don't know what that person has a knife. You don't know what they have to lose. Somebody else is always tougher.
Yeah.
And I could be a ninja, but I could have a bad day.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like,
Or there could be two ninjas that you'd have to fight.
And you usually don't fight one person anymore. It's like a gang of corner critters that are on you.
Yeah.
And yes, I have
Corner critters. I want a t-shirt. I want a t-shirt by next week that says, I don't want no corner critters. Okay. But yeah, you learned the self-control from, actual instructors at a dojo that teach you that this isn't something that you just go.
Yeah, it is better to walk away with your head up than it is out of shame, because usually the bully's going to pick on that and feed off of that. To be able to walk away with your head up is a much better answer, because I have things to lose now.
Oh God.
And when I was younger, it didn't matter. And it's like, I'll fight. Yeah, let's do this. Right. I'll prove myself. Now I have way too much to this, but now I just say I'm just old. Like, I don't want to fight. Like, I'm hurt, and like I don't
want to be on the couch.
I'll bite
Sunday.
and I'll pull eyeballs out, and I'm like, I'm just mean now.
Testicles,
it's like I don't want to do it. Yeah,
just that's how you get out of it.
It's not worth it. And
thanks,
if
Dad,
that person
teaching me about that.
It just hurts. So
yeah,
I have the control in the sense that I know what I have now, and it's like it's always better to walk away with your head up.
For sure. Yeah. Sweet.
Man, I was the question we always ask is like, if not now, when moment, but like I feel like you just live that moment all the time, like by the way you live your life. Like it's always kind of, if not now, when. So like I think there isn't like just one moment probably, like, but is there one that you can think of that's just like I wouldn't be the person I am today without that moment? Yeah. I think you probably talked about it.
Well, I did, in the sense that walking into the dojo changed my life.
Yeah.
Right? Having a mom that supported me changed my life. Having friends in Spokane, like my buddy Moses, changed my life. Getting into UW changed my life. Getting into the business program changed my life. Learning Japanese, learning to fall in love with books changed my life. Learning to get a business license changed my life. Becoming the top personal trainer changed my life. Like all of these little moments completely were like, you talk about the 10 times 2.
Yeah.
It's like all of these moments in my life by Dan Sullivan. All of these major things have absolutely exponentially changed my life. But I will answer this question to you right now. Meeting my wife.
Yeah.
On an airplane. It was a flight. I was coming to visit my karate instructor's 80th surprise birthday party.
Nice.
And we got on, and I wasn't looking to be in a relationship, and neither was my wife. But long story short, if I had not it's horrible because it's the only person. All right. I'll throw this out. So she worked on the airline, and she was a flight attendant. And depending on who you ask this story from, it would be different, right? So I'll tell her version, where I'm the crazy guy on board. And I went up. We got upgraded to a first class, and so I was traveling with my mom to this birthday party, and I yelled back. I go, "Hey, I'll be right back," because I needed to get an upgrade for my mom. And my wife Heidi said, "Okay," and I was like, "No, I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the lady behind you."
Yeah.
And I went back. I grabbed my ticket. I came back in. And as I was walking, she goes, "You're back." I go, "Yeah," and I go, "What is your name?"
Yeah.
Like, you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
And she goes, "Heidi." I go, "Heidi, my name is Blue." And she goes, "Blue?"
Yeah.
And I go, "Like the color."
Like the color,
And so
yeah.
I grabbed my mom, walked up, and then she came up and she smiled at me while she was giving the instructions. And if
That
you
was
ask
it?
her, it was not smiling at me. That's what her job
Oh.
is. But I took it as a smile. And then she did it again, because a flight from Seattle to Spokane is like 30 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
The pilot happened to come out and go to the bathroom. And I was like, she came up and had to protect the pilot.
Yep.
And she smiled at me again. But if you ask her, it wasn't at me. And
Just
I
doing
was
my job, sir. Don't be
totally
creepy.
doing her job. And so I was like, man, I should ask this woman out. But I didn't want to wait until we landed and say, "Do you remember me and my mom? Like, can I get your number?"
Yeah.
And then I was like, "Oh," but I did a little recon. I asked the first class attendant that was with me, I'm like, "Are you guys based in Spokane or in Seattle?" And he said Seattle. So I was like trying to figure out, is this somebody worth pursuing?
Yeah.
And he said, "No, we're in Seattle." And I was like, "All right." And I did something that I've never done. And my best friend picked us up at the airport, and he says, "What's going on?" And I go, "I just did something that I've never done." And he made fun of me because I've always asked someone out.
Yeah.
But I gave my card to a third party
To give to
her. So it was like the worst case scenario,
so you
right?
were crushing pretty hard,
Oh,
because
totally.
otherwise you would have felt confident enough to just walk up and
completely would have.
I love that.
And
I love that.
She didn't text or call me. And then I was like, man, after the birthday party, and we went back out to the airport, I go, if I run into her, she's in trouble.
Yeah.
Well, when we walked into the airport, I got a text and said, "You couldn't give me your number personally, Mr. Stiley." And it was on from then. And
Yeah.
you know what? We hit it off, and we met in Seattle, and we basically fell in love with each other right
This
away,
has been
even though I said it
15
first.
years?
It's been like 13 or 14, how
okay.
long, but we've been married 11.
Yeah.
And if I had not given my number to the first class
yeah.
attendant, I wouldn't have two amazing, beautiful
Yeah.
kids. I wouldn't live where I live, and I wouldn't have the greatest cheerleader at my back to push me and challenge me to be better every single day.
That's dope.
And so that was the now.
Little does she know your persistence. If she hadn't reached out, you probably would have become a pilot.
And you would have
tried to find her.
I would have found you, Heidi, for sure. No, it's and then like I called Alaska Airlines.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I want to marry one of your flight attendants."
Yeah.
And they're like, "What?" And I was like, "I don't know how, but I want to do it publicly."
Yeah.
And for 3 months, I worked with the FAA and I worked with Alaska Airlines
To do it on the plane.
To do not on the plane, but to do it at the airport at SeaTac.
Oh.
And they put me in the jetway, and she thought that she was getting a customer service award, and she was working the flight. And all of a sudden, her boss got out there and said, "Hey, everybody, we have somebody really special today, a part of our family who's made a difference in this world on so many people. And what better way than to have the person that she affected the most come out?" And so I came out, I got on a knee and proposed there. And then we had a first class trip ticket. And all the people that worked on the airplane,
You just
when
made
I
it
asked
so
her
hard
out,
for the rest of us.
and it was awesome. And I thank you, Alaska Airlines. That was a great plug. But I would not be who I am today
Yeah.
without my wife. And so if not now, when? There was no better time. And I
Yeah.
only had one card. That was
Yeah.
another part. I
Oh,
was like,
wow.
I only had one card, and I was like, man, what's the luck of having that card? Because if she doesn't take it and call me, I'm apparently becoming a pilot, and I'm going to track her
Chase
down.
her down.
Exactly.
I love it. Thank you. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for
Thank
opening
you.
up, sharing your experiences. We appreciate it. And I think this is a really great start to a new path for If Not Now When. To have you be the kind of first that's not just us sitting around bitching about poop in the street. You can take the poop part out.
I love being back in Spokane.
Yeah.
I love the community, and I love coming back because I do have that network. I have my childhood best friends are here, and Spokane offers so much. And there's anything that anyone wants to achieve or get, there's a path there.
Yep.
And Spokane offers that.
And I would say the best way for Spokane to grow into a really great community is for people to leave but come back. It's go get the experiences. You've been able to experience so much. Now you bring that back to the community. I look at Olivia and her family. Her brother took off. Now he's back, and he's at that age where he's ready to start a family and buy a home. And it's really great when people go out and they attain a life that doesn't require them to live in Spokane, but that they choose to come back, which means they want this community to be better. So it's fantastic.
And my wife definitely like pulled my arm, and I didn't want to come back.
Now, she wasn't from here.
No.
Okay.
No. She just wanted to, she was like, she wanted more for our kids and to be able to have a great education and just have fun. And we own property in Idaho, so we would always come back and visit. And so she pulled my arm, twisted my arm, and I haven't looked back. I'm the happiest I've ever been.
That's right.
And I love it here, and I love what you're saying about coming back and offering more.
Yeah.
Because it just to be able to help other people along this path is just amazing, and Spokane offers that. And I love connecting with people. I love meeting you.
Yeah.
I love it. It's just there's so much to offer here, and it's such a great community. So come connect with me. 100%. I love now that my daughter knows more people when we go out than I do.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, hey, Hayden. I'm like, hey, wait a minute. What
about
here,
me?
Right? Yeah, what about me?
Yeah.
No, it's just great. And I'm the happiest I've ever been.
That's rad.
Where can people find you online?
So most of my business, all related, is all LinkedIn at Blue Stiley, and then Instagram at Blue Stiley. But I have this amazing podcast. It's called Navigating No. And that's on all platforms. And my producer Brendan's sitting right next to me, and one of our guests was Josh here. But no, those are all the platforms, and connect with me because I love it, and I want to hear feedback from people. And if I can help you, I would love to. And if not, I bet I know somebody who can help you.
I would love to come to a speaking event sometime. So you need to make sure that
you just missed Lilac City Comic Con. I gave Dark Side for Life. Yeah. It was awesome. I know. I will be speaking
next?
for locally. I have CEO to CEO.
Okay.
And that is, I know that they do tickets for that, and that'll be out in the Valley
at the
Mirabeau.
Yes.
At the Mirabeau.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somebody invited me to one a couple months ago.
Well, then you should go.
I'll go to the next one.
My speech is going to be Find Your Table.
And what date?
I believe it's July 17th, and it's a breakfast. Livia's going to throw that in.
I fly to Lisbon on the 18th, so this will be perfect. Yes. July, right?
You're going to have a lot to take with you on the plane.
Yeah.
Plus my book.
Yeah. I'll have some time to unpack it all.
I love that. No, I would love to see you.
No, it'd be rad.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sean.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Look at the hug.
Oh, nice.
Love it. Thank you.